First science question is, what is it that makes diseases caused by viruses and bacteria hard to treat?
Yeah, so, okay, so first of all, the question is a little bit strange because it's asking what makes diseases caused by viruses and bacteria hard to treat, not by viruses as opposed to bacteria. I don't know what this is referencing. Harder to treat than what? Maybe harder to treat than like a nutrient deficiency or something like that. If you were deficient in some nutrient, you would just have to correct that by consuming the right kind of nutrient. But bacteria and viruses are distinctly different, bacteria versus viruses, and to lump them together is, I think, maybe a little bit misleading. So I'll just briefly talk about sort of the differences between bacteria and viruses, and then vaguely how we would treat those differences. So bacteria are living organisms, often single-celled organisms. Bacteria, by and large, are either, well, most bacteria have no effect on us at all. A huge number of bacteria are super beneficial for us. In fact, there are more bacterial cells in your body that don't belong to your body than there are cells that belong to your body inside of you and on the surface of your skin. Especially your gut is chock full of bacteria. And those bacteria, the vast majority of them, again, are doing hugely beneficial work for you. Certain bacteria in there can, like Escherichia coli, for example, you can get colonies of them that overgrow and make you very sick. And that might be an example of a type of disease issue you would look with from bacteria. Viruses, as opposed to bacteria, viruses are not living creatures, or they're not said to be technically living. So whereas a bacteria is a celled organism, so a cell, when we talk about a cell, we're talking about an organism that has sort of a membrane that encloses itself. We have membranes on our cells that enclose us, and then our skin is kind of the outer membrane. But viruses are just really a set of DNA covered in a protein coat. And viruses cannot reproduce on their own. They're considered parasitic because they need the cells of another living organism in order to reproduce. Since they can't reproduce on their own, they'll infect our cells, they'll jump into our cells, they'll use our own cells' reproductive systems to reproduce themselves. But instead of using our cells' DNA, they'll be using their own DNA. So since bacteria and viruses are very different, since in the case of viruses, you actually have something invading our own cells, whereas in the case of bacteria, you would just have sort of a growth, a colony that's sort of invasive. You would treat them in very different ways. Bacteria are typically treated with what are called antibiotics. Antibiotics are a wide range of chemicals that we have found to be to kill cells off. And specifically bacteria cells. Bacteria cells, unlike our cells, have sort of a simpler membrane, and so they're more easily affected by these chemicals. It doesn't affect our own bodies to take antibiotics. However, it affects all those beneficial bacteria I was talking about. So if you take a round of antibiotics to kill off some type of bacterial infection, at the same time, you'd be killing off all kinds of beneficial bacteria that live in your system. And so some doctors, and I think the number of them is growing, actually encourage people to try to get through illnesses without antibiotics. It's a much healthier way to go, and you can build up a better resistance in that way. Viral infections can be slightly different. Often with viral infections, you're just waiting. If it's a minor viral infection, you would just be waiting for the infection to pass over time. We have a pretty fantastic immune system as humans, and our immune system is able to detect and latch onto viruses and get rid of them over time. And so oftentimes if you have a viral infection, you go to the doctor, they'll often be treating the symptoms of your condition rather than the source of the condition, just allowing your body to take care of that on its own. Special viruses like HIV, which actually affect our own immune system, have to be treated with a special class of drugs called antiretroviral drugs, which work in a complex way to kill off viruses, but not you. But yeah, so in any case, it's hard to kill off diseases, I guess, in general, but to say the question was a little bit vague, I don't quite know harder than what they were trying to refer to. And again, bacteria and viruses being so different as entities are treated much differently.
It's really interesting.
Oh yeah, all that good, interesting stuff.
I want to know more about it, though. I don't know.
Yeah, but sometimes when the questions are really broad like that, it's hard for me to know where to go specifically. So if anyone's ever sending in questions, you can ask more specific questions than that about a particular kind of virus or a particular kind of bacteria. It's often easier for me to get to more details, I guess.
Makes sense. Makes sense. All right, well.